It's preparing live stream. Okay, so it's going live now. Sorry, everybody, we've been talking, right? Stuff that you don't need to hear. Let me just go on here and see if
Just
it's
live.
working. Yeah, yeah. Oh, challenging times indeed. There we go, live. So by all means, if you're listening, if anybody's there, if you want to put comments up, we'll try our best to have a look at them. I'll just this should come up on your thing actually, Kristin, but I'll put here
See.
at, if I do that like that, and then I send it to you, that's now linked to your Facebook page.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So, how are you?
I'm present.
Okay, let me
I
ask you this. Let me ask you a more direct question. How are you in your emotional state, your mood state? How do you feel generally?
I feel like I am, how can I put this? I feel I'm really in an observer mode, like constantly. And it's fascinating to see how quick the shifts can be and how to what an extreme, the both the challenging stuff and the really good stuff that is sort of happening external in my life is. And also to really watch very clearly when I go into my own like old patterns and belief systems, and like how ridiculous that can seem in moments because it's like complete clarity, and then how completely in it I can be at other times. It's like, all lights on and all lights off. It's and with that, of course, the emotions shifts as well. But really coming back to the observer and the breath is helping me.
Well, I say ditto to that. Same. What about physical symptoms of so-called ascension?
Um,
And what does it mean? Give us a
That's
clue.
what I'm thinking, because I'm not like super fan of like the attention symptom kind of term, because I think it creates a lot of attachment for the human. Because I mean, I lived for many years with chronic disease, with chronic fatigue, and with Lyme disease, and a lot of pain. And one of the things I had to work with coming out of that is the constant symptom check,
Yeah.
because it was, during those years it was constantly, oh, there's pain here and there's pain there and this thing, and how is it today, how much can I do today, when is it too much? And it's, I think, being overly focused on what people call ascension symptoms can create a bit of the same pattern, which is actually looking for limitations rather than, being present and listening to the body, because it can be looking for limitations rather than actually being connected with the body, because it's coming from a point of fear. Now, that being said, of course, the energies that are coming in, that has to do with the evolution of human consciousness, and that is shifting the physical body on a very tangible level and creating symptoms. That is very real, but I think having an awareness of how we look at that and how we frame it for our own mind is really, really important.
Couldn't agree more.
That
And
being
I
said,
think,
for me, sleep has been like the main thing that goes, like, because once my nervous system gets a bit off, it affects my sleep. So, and of course, all the energy coming in affects the nervous system. Everything that is going on in life is affecting the nervous system. And so, trying to come back to the balance in that, the breath, having good practice, of that, trying to stay hydrated as much as possible, and also being more aware of having, consistent time off social media, for example, is important, I would say, for me.
I agree. I agree with you about the ascension symptomatology thing, but I suppose it's a perspective thing, really. If it's coming from the ego and fear induced, right, it can be very neurotic, you know. However, I suppose from a heart-centered point of view, it's an indication as well that there's an
Yes,
obstruction to flow. That's how I see
exactly.
it. I think
Yes.
where I'm working from energy vibrational medicine point of view is that any pain is an obstruction to the free flow of vital energy or the spirit.
Yes.
And that's what I've learned now. So if I get a sort of pain or an obstruction, I know that what I've got to do is, first of all, create some space, sit down, and ask my intuition or my innate intelligence, what's this about? And sometimes it may be about is put your arm like that and turn around like that, and it goes. So that might be a physical thing. Or
Mm.
it could be the way I'm thinking. I might have something wrong, and that's obstruction it as well. Or it could be an emotional thing where I've said yes when really I should have said no. So there's all those different things that impact really.
Yeah.
And I think like you is we're being bombarded, and I'm going to talk about this in the talk. We're being bombarded by solar radiation at the moment in big heaps, really. And a couple of days ago, apparently we had three X-class flares, right, Earth facing, and sensitive people like our good selves, we picked this up.
Mm-hmm.
And the first place I understand, and I could be wrong, but I understand that the solar flares and this intensity of radiation hits our what's called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is the center of biorhythms and time. It's all really about time. And it's a bit like people are feeling, and I've felt like this myself, to be honest, like I've been on a transatlantic flight. And you know that feeling we had when we came back from Houston.
I
Well,
remember very well
yeah,
for
yeah.
a
And
week or two.
yeah, yeah, and it can make you feel sick in the stomach and it can make you
Yes.
feel fuzzy-headed. But what I've realized now is rather than try and grit your teeth and get through it, is to try and care for yourself even more. And that might mean doing less. But there's a trap with doing less. If you're a sensitive person, you can have a go at yourself for being lazy, right? So there's so many traps. So we can be on the guilt trap, guilt trip.
Yeah.
But once you can see that coming in, and you can spend a bit more time just relaxing, drinking plenty of water, doing some gentle movement and exercise, then clarity comes back and we can see what we need. These are just the things I'm picking up because, like everybody else, I'm just learning as I go along, really.
Yeah.
Uh, you
And I
know,
would say with that, like you just said about like being less productive, that is, I think, watching which beliefs coming up if we feel that we need to slow down, we need to say no to a few more things, we need to, reschedule a couple of days maybe, because it's like just need to rest and recalibrate and adjust. Then really watching what we need. Like, do do you feel that you have to go into a victim state and make excuses for it to be okay? Maybe focus more on a pain in the body, or like, do you need those excuses, or can you actually just, okay, this is self-care and self-love, because then you don't need to be in a victim state. You can do it from an empowered state. That is actually taking the symptoms and the need of adjustment and doing practical steps in your life from an empowered state rather than going into a victim state, because otherwise I can't have boundaries, or otherwise I can't, adjust things, people won't respect it, or I won't meet my own expectations, or whatever it is. Like, really watching those beliefs, because th- those are those are written in capital letters these days.
it's difficult, isn't it? Because if you've got people who are pressurizing you to do stuff, it's really difficult to say, hang on a second, I'll get round to that. I'll get
Yes.
round to that in my time, not your time. And that really causes a lot of problems sometimes.
It can do, but I think the I lean more and more into just integrity, because as long as I know that I'm in integrity, things will resolve.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if I say that I'm going to do something, like for example, I had a client who sent me a message a couple of weeks ago. I said I would come back to her on that within, a few days. Then I had, few things, unforeseen things happening. I didn't get around to do everything that I was scheduling to do, and I thought I had sent her a reply, one more, saying that it's going to take a bit more time, but I will come back to you. Yesterday I realized that I had not sent that message that I was sure I had sent, but that is, I mean, we can make mistakes, right?
Of
This
course.
happens. And so I sent her a message, I apologized, and I was just honest. There was unforeseen things happening. I thought I had sent you this message. My apologies. I will come back to you, and I will, yeah, I'm going to do like ask the question in a channeling, so it will take a bit more time, but I've gotten several questions around the same topic, so I will go a bit deeper into it. But that is like, I don't need to make any other excuse or any, it's like, no, I screwed up. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm human.
Human.
And I
Exactly.
think then people will for the most part understand it. It's when we are like going into lies or excuses or things because we don't think we can make a mistake, or we can. I mean, it happens.
It
We're
does.
human, all of us.
It does. And there's too many tasks and not enough time to do them with the depth of quality that I like as well. So the idea would be is if I want to do things more with more quality, I just gotta not take on board so many things. And that's
Exactly.
again part of the people pleaser thing, isn't it? I'll do that. Don't worry, leave it to me and all that. And it's almost like as they pile in, resentment builds up and you want to blame everybody else for look what they're doing to me. And they're not doing it because I'm allowing it. And that's the hard thing, isn't it? At all those different levels of our being or consciousness, we allow these things. And so therefore I know now that I'm personally responsible for everything. Everything.
Yes. And that is so empowering because it gives you the power of making choices. Really.
It's
Are
got
you
this.
aware? Do you know your human design?
No, no.
Ah, I
I
find
don't,
that so
to be honest with
fascinating.
you, I don't look at stuff like that because
Yeah.
the way I work is it really doesn't matter at all what's happening to me as long as I remain emotionally calm and balanced and open.
Yes.
So I don't sort of I've given away looking at that and even the predictions and this is coming up in the future. Whatever's happening here and now, I feel confident enough to be able to trust my being to be able to deal with it from one moment to the next, really.
Yes. Yes.
So I mean, people have
That's
said to me,
where
"Oh,
I'm
it's
living
gene
from
key
too.
number 69." I don't know why I picked 69, just comes to me. Gene key number 69. You need
There
to
are
look at
only
the
64 gene keys.
yeah. Oh well, whatever. Yeah, yeah. I have to have an extra five. You know what I mean? But okay, so 64 gene keys, and they say to me, you need to look at 39 because this, and I go like this now. No, I don't, but thank you anyway, right? Because if my innate intelligence wants me to do that, I'll almost like be guided to the book and open it up on the page, you know what I mean? So that's where I'm up to. I've sort of stopped looking at external things, right? And I just sort of trust this. Don't get me wrong, Kristin, I listen to everything that's going on and I sort of allow it to come in and sit here. And it's this part of me that sort of gauges what it feeds back up to me head, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
That's the way I work with the systems as well, because it will be like I'm getting an intuitive hit and it will come again and again.
Yeah,
And then I know, okay, I have to pay attention to this
yeah,
thing. And then I can, either I Google whatever I hear, and it can be like some sort of an asteroid that I've never heard of. And I'm like, oh, there's actually this thing existing having this name. And then I read about it and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what's going on in my life. Or it can be like, look into this gene key or look at this thing. And I'm like, whatever, I'll do it today. And then it keeps coming and it keeps
yeah.
coming. And I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
So it's really for confirmation, not information, because I think
Yes.
once you get to a place wherever we are, the information comes from within, and then sometimes you get confirmation in the day to say you're on the right path. So that's the way I work it too. I kept getting Mintaka, and I thought I've heard of Mintaka before, right? And it's apparently a planet, right? I don't know I haven't had a look yet at the association with it, but I got Mintaka, and I thought. I've definitely heard that before, but I'm not sure what it means. But it's some sort of a planet. And whether or not it's been destroyed, but the sort of etheric component, I don't know. I don't know. So I have to say to my heart, can you give me that in a clearer way, please? Because I've got
Yeah.
no idea what you're going on about.
Exactly.
Should we have a little look at the nervous system and what the sun's doing to our nervous system and stuff like that?
Let's dive in.
All right. fair enough. I'll try and whiz through it quickly, but I think for anybody watching, we've done a few. This is actually episode 9. So we've touched on stuff all the way through. There may be some repetition. I'm just trying to work out what I do here. Oh, here we go. Yeah. There we go. Look. I've called this Mind Your Language, basically, because what I'm realizing, it's so important how we talk to ourselves, because that actually impacts upon what we manifest in our lives as well. And if we have negative talk and we keep having a go at ourselves, then it obstructs the flow of manifestation energy or potential, apparently. Right. So we call that, and there's the professor from Oslo and me, and episode 9. I put a thing up yesterday, about the events, because we've been talking about the event, and I've put, as the greatest psychic in the world, I said, the event will occur eventually, right? Send money to this address, But this is what this is a bit to me. I like this picture. I don't know where I got it from. If it's yours, I'll be glad to put your name on it. But it's the 2 strands of DNA that we have as humans. These are 2 physical strands that can be identified. But by all accounts, and depending on who you listen to, there's 10 strands of DNA that are floating around that also impact upon us in the invisible realms as well. Now, some people are saying now that scientists in this material world have started to identify a 3rd physical strand. I'm not sure about that yet. I've looked through all the medical journals and I'm not convinced, because I do think that maybe there's 10 dimensions in the invisible realms that actually work through these 2 strands. That's the way I see it. These are where the manifestation potential actually works through. But I've called this the I am approach because this, to me, is representative of something called the great central sun, the source of everything. And whether or not there was a big bang, or whether that's just the way that humans try and describe it, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not interested, really, to be honest with you. Or should I say, it's all very interesting, but in the end, it's what you do that counts, I feel, more than anything else. Not what you think, all the theories. Because as one person chucks up a theory, another one comes in to sort of have a go at it, so I don't get involved in that anymore. So this is what we're going to be looking at, really, is how can we become a whole human being? Well, first of all, I think we've got to understand what constitutes a whole human being. And I've called this integrative. So that's living in an integral way, is really, it's when you're integrated and you're being authentic and you're being honest with yourself, So we look at the physical, and modern medicine generally looks at the physical, but there's also the emotional component. And what seems to be happening is, in this great shift of consciousness that seems to be happening, and the yoga practitioners have known this for a long time, there's various cycles of time, and we seem to be going through the worst that could ever be in human terms, where the world seems to be getting crazier and crazier. Everybody's kicking off, and people in white vans on the motorway are going faster and faster and getting too close to your back of your car. It seems to be like lunacy. So there's lots of emotions coming up based upon this new increase in solar energy that's coming through from our sun. So the great central sun's having a shift, but it's also focusing through our own sun as well, our own star. And then we've got IQ then. These are all intelligences, these. IQ is based upon how much you've learned, how much you've studied, and what you can remember. So it's based upon memory. It's not based upon innate intelligence. It's just based upon what you can remember. And the more you can remember and regurgitate it, that gets you to higher places in this 3D material world. And then we've got this part here now. This is called spirit, really, and it's all to do with energy. And it's all to do with invisible realms of energy. So this would be electricity and magnetism, and becoming even more subtle then, and getting into what's called the quantum realms. And I'll just quickly explain that. Most people have heard of atoms. They might have heard of electrons, neutrons, and protons. But when we get to this here, is what are electrons, neutrons, and protons made up of? Oh, you see, and then we get and what are they made up of? So we can talk about quarks and bosons and all sorts of these particles, but then you've got to ask yourself, well, okay, then what's that made of? All right. And we get into all sorts of complications. But generally speaking, the more sensitive you become, the more you can feel different, more subtle domains of energy. And these are really where we sort of, people think that we get extraterrestrial contacts. Some people think it's angelic. Some people think it's different levels of consciousness. It doesn't matter, but this is quite something that you've got to sort of intuit your way into. And if you've got all these working harmoniously in coherence, then we become a whole person. And in my understanding, you can't really deny any of these or leave any of them out. Otherwise, you're just a half-hearted person, really. So this is what I'm calling the fifth element. We are the fifth element. That's the way I'm being shown at the moment. And it's a dynamic process because nothing in reality, nothing is static. It's always moving and always changing all the time, based upon various factors, whether they be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, you know. And the idea would be is we become more efficient when we become more sensitive to these forces and these flows that are impacting upon us, sending us information all the time. And if we can become sensitive to that, working on how our bodies are trying to send us the signals back, right, then we've got a much better chance of making a more healthy and a less harmful choice. So there we've got this process we've got here. Just let me shift this thing here so I can see. I'll put that down there. We've got this spiritual component, all the energies, the invisible dimensions. This is sometimes called the transpersonal dimension. And then we've got emotional intelligence. So what happens is the energies come in from the cosmos. They work through our emotions. Our emotions generate feelings. Our feelings impact upon the way we think and make choices. And then we take the action in the physical. So there's basically, it's called the path of the flaming sword, right? And it's basically how manifestation takes place. But manifestation can actually be obstructed in each of these different components here. So if we can feel the obstruction earlier and de-obstruct them and get them out the way, we've got a much better chance of having a more successful and abundant life. Or at least that's the way I see it. And when they're all balanced, that's what happens. The fifth element jumps in and we begin to understand things. And that to me is part of a spiritual awakening. And what I've understood is, and people are talking about the event, I see it clearly as that the event has got two components. Some people feel there's just going to be one big blip and everybody will become beautiful and wonderful and everything overnight. I personally don't feel that it works like that. But I think some people can have a very, very powerful spiritual awakening where, like Paul on the road to Damascus, or Saul as his name was, he got hit by a big ball of lightning, basically, or sun, or radiation, and his mind changed. So to me, the event is a psychic change. That means at the level of the soul, where you start to see things that you've previously not seen them before, right? However, I do think that there's another component of the event, which is more like an educational variety, where you almost get a little bit and your eye starts to open slowly but surely just to let things in. And I think most people are going through that. It's a bit like, I never saw that before. That's interesting. So your mind changes slowly. What happened to me was I got battered like Saul or Paul. I had like a big psychotropic attack, really, and I was hospitalized for 8 weeks, and I was given all sorts of psychotropic medication, and they said I was having psychotic, I was hearing voices and seeing things, very exciting at the time. It was terrible. But I see now that it was just a spiritual awakening, really. That's quickly my story. So what's happening at the moment is, there's no doubt about it, the Schumann resonance, if anybody's interested, is increasing exponentially. That just means it's really increasing. And we're having massive influxes or explosions from the sun called flares, solar flares, and they've all got different intensities. In the last few days, we've had 3 what's called X-class flares, Earth facing. And what's actually happening is, it's increasing radiation. These are electromagnetic explosions that are impacting not just upon the planets as well, but also on Earth over here. Let me explain. So that's what's happening. These are magnetic and electromagnetic energies, and they're sending these waves, multiple waves of all sorts of different frequencies, which is impacted upon the magnetic shield of our planet, which is impacted upon the vibration of the planet, which is impacted upon our brain waves because we're on planet Earth. And because our brain waves are being affected, we're starting to think in different ways. And loads and loads and loads of people are exhausted now because of this increase in these influxes or explosions. So that's what's happening. It can't be denied. If you go onto proper science sites, you'll see that there's increase in these things. So it's not something that we're making up from the spiritual domain, but it's definitely impacting upon us. So that's what's happening. This is what's called the electromagnetic spectrum. And the sun now is increasing in intensity. And it's a bit like chucking a stone in a pond, a mill pond. And what happens is where the first stone goes in, it creates waves like this. And initially they're high frequency, high intensity. But as we get further away, they start to condense and hit our Earth here. But what actually happens is, as it hits certain places here, information also goes backwards up towards the sun. That's why there's a dynamic process. And that's why sometimes you'll see that figure of 8. That means infinity. It's a dynamic process that is going on and on and on and on. Right.
Quite a mirror of human relationships, right?
Absolutely. It's being mirrored. It's being mirrored at the planet Earth as well, because the Earth itself is, let's use the word ascending or evolving. So there's a lot of electromagnetic and magnetoelectric energy impacted upon the Earth. The ley lines of the Earth now are shifting. So we feel that as well. The weather's changing for various reasons. I'm just talking about natural changes now, right? So there's also a shift in actually in the Earth itself. And I look at it this way. What used to be an ocean is becoming a desert. And what used to be a desert is becoming an ocean. So there's almost like a cyclical process. Probably got nothing to do with CO2. Anyway, don't even go there, Joe. So this is what's happening.
In one of the last channelings I did on, they talked about these, like the energies and flares that has been in May and how it's going to be, looking in June and up to solstice. And I said around that May is or has been like an energetic peak point, and June will be a physical peak point, because it's just a delayed experience of the same thing. And I said exactly what you're saying with the water, because I said it will, from a bit before solstice and actually until the next solstice, so that meaning December 2024, it's going to be a shortage of water some places on the earth and an excess of water other places, because there is an adjustment happening on the earth as well, just as it is in ourselves with the hydration of the actual liquids in the body, and also with emotions that are the water element. So it's the same, really.
It is, and it's interesting that you bring up water, because I'll talk about water and the physical body in a second, because our water is so precious, and it's almost like there's a con going on to actually dirty our water, and I'll try and explain this in more simple terms. But so this is going on. There's increased radiation from our lovely sun. The sun is sending out this radiation, and the radiation itself is carrying information that's got intelligence of its own. It actually impacts upon different parts of our mind, and I'll explain it further as I go along. But let me just show what's happening. There's the drop of water initially, and it's a bit like light initially, right? What happens is it goes through the prism of our minds, it gets split up, and then there's another part then sending the information back to the cosmos, where the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, they all get back together again. And this is what I see as part of like an evolutionary thing, really. And then when we get to that one, then there'll be another fragmentation where we learn new lessons, and then we, so it's very, very interesting what's happening. I put this up every week because this to me is representative of the cosmos, of the whole. And I think we've got influences coming in from all these different directions. which are impacting upon the little human here. But that square there is where all these energies meet. And it's basically how we process this information, right, which will determine how we feel, which will determine the choices that we make as well. So if we're overloaded by it all, we may go into fight and flight and defensive, and we'll probably make less healthy choices. But my understanding now is that there's actually 12 different ways that we're influenced from these invisible dimensions. So every human being has basically 12 intelligences, which all give us the capability of doing different things. So this is, to me, this is invisible. This is the human mind. Now, there's a thing here that if you think it's the brain and the activity of the brain that develops consciousness, then you probably won't understand what's coming up. But if you think that it's the mind working through the brain impacted upon the body, then you've probably got much more chance of understanding. So really, it's a bit like when people go under anesthetic and they have out-of-body experiences where they're watching the operation on the avatar or the physical body. And after the anesthetic works off, they jump back in and they're restored then to human life. So I've had a few out-of-body experiences myself. And so it's no problem for me. And I'm not trying to convince anybody, but I honestly believe that the mind works through the brain as the organ of consciousness. And it's the impulses coming from the mind and these invisible dimensions that work on certain areas of the brain that send signals then to various parts of the body. So sometimes we have to go into meditation. We have to almost look at the way that we're thinking, and we can change our thinking in the invisible realms, which sends different informations through our body. I don't know whether that makes sense, but
To me, it makes perfect sense because it's the same information really that I've been channeling. I put out some information on this in a video yesterday, actually. So it makes
yeah.
perfect sense.
So I mean,
Because the brain is a tool that is analytical and it's sending the messages to the body. So the brain is like the filter which everything comes through, but it's not what is sending it. It's just like the receiver and it's the radio station, right?
yeah,
And also there's where if we are in a lot of resistance to the energies that are coming in and we think we have to fight them, or we are fighting the belief systems that are being illuminated, then we are really fighting against ourselves. And also emotional addictions, we know how much the brain has to do. Like in the channeling they also mentioned especially the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, but all the glands in the body, really, because the brain sends the information out through the nervous system and through the glands of the body, which is producing all of the hormones and everything. And so the whole biology of the human body changes when we change our thoughts. And these are, as you just explained, being affected now by the energies coming in.
funny you should say that. That's coming up next.
Yes.
Yeah. I put this up because it makes me laugh, and people might go, oh my God. But believe it or not, if you spend some time looking at this, right, these are all the forces that are acting upon us all the time through various parts of us. This is the central column. They call this the middle path, the middle way. That represents actually balance. But these are the chakra system. And you can see here, there's like a binary system here, or the duality. One's push and one's pull. And ideally, the push and pull should be working together harmoniously. So it's a dance. But what tends to happen is the push wants to push more and it won't listen to the pull. And the pull. So this to me is, I was talking to Kristin about this before. This is at the different levels of the chakra, the narcissist empath, right? Or the yin and the yang. And if the yin wants to be the boss, then the yang's going to kick off. So there's conflict that happens. It's called accentuated antagonism. So there's an antagonism even at the level of our chakras, which impacts upon our brain and our hemispheres, which send mixed messages to our physical body, giving us dis-ease. So sometimes in the invisible realms, there can be all these things going on, and we feel it in the physical body. Now, if we just try and fix the physical symptoms, we've missed the point totally. So we have to drop deeper into meditation and try and feel the energetics of it, really. So that's that system there. I love all this. And the other thing here is we've got Mother Earth here. So being grounded to Mother Earth as deep as possible and be open-minded here. So we've got heaven up here, we've got earth here, and we're almost like the fuse or the conduit. But we're sort of misdirected, and there's a lot of short circuits, and it's a bit like an electrical diagram. We need to go in and fix the circuitry, really. And I think that we can do that being guided from our innate intelligence. So that's that.
Yes.
And I've sort
And I
of
think
put the
what you said when you started putting the picture of dance when you started explaining this, and I think because this what you just said is happening in everything in our lives. It is the body, obviously, as we talked about now, but just like in a dance class we had last week, and we were talking about the connection, the frame, because it's couples dance, and what I said is just this, and of course I wanted, when I first start talking about it, I want to, go into these perspectives, but I obviously can't in that context. But like the point of being firm, and having contact, and so that we can actually lead and follow and be connected is super important. We can't be like all like you just floppy and not connected, but neither are we going to be like super hard, because then it's, just imagine a couple dancing and it's such a beautiful flow and it's a beautiful connection and everything is like a unit moving like one. But if it's too hard, because you're like, that, okay, I need to be connected, and it's going to look like wrestling.
yeah.
So it's just that's staying connected within, so that we can get the messages that are coming in and also the messages that wants to come out. It's the same, whether it is, in the healing of the body, whether it's on the dance floor, whether it's, in communication, in relationships, or, with the cashier in the supermarket. It's really the same thing in all of these areas.
And I think that's the difference between chaos and coherence. I
Yes.
think out of chaos, when you start to understand that antagonism doesn't help anybody really, it's collaboration and working together. And I think that people are beginning to understand now that probably the only way out of the mess that we're in, because we've all contributed to it, is probably to start working together with our individual capabilities. And what you can do well, I don't have to learn what you do because I can do stuff that you can't do. So if we work together,
Luckily.
yeah, so that's how it works. And I think I've done a lot of martial arts, and there's Aikido really is the art of fighting without fighting. It's a dance. So if somebody's coming at you with all their energy, you can just use it and turn them back around again, really. And so it almost like becomes a dance. And it's a bit like, it's called Wu Wei in Taoism. It's called Wu Wei.
Yes.
It's this. It's just the wave, really, and it's learning to feel the surfing of the wave.
Yeah. And I think that's what we are learning now.
We
That's a
are.
part of this evolution in consciousness that we're in instead of like, okay, I have this structure and the society is like this, and I learned this from my parents, and the school said this, so I'm going to live my life like this and do this at this time and this at this time. Like, we're moving away from that, and we are going to fumble, in the way of finding how to live in flow rather than in rigidity.
Yeah, and I think we get an idea. Like, for example, in Tai Chi, they teach you the form because there's a structure to the form, but then they say, well, there's the form now. Now put your own individuality onto that form now, so that they allow your individuality. But it's a bit like teaching. It's like a mountaineer. The mountaineer's got the rope tied to it. He says, follow every instruction because it's dangerous. And as you get a bit further and a bit more sort of, and this is spirit helping us, I believe. I use the word spirit for intuitive intelligence. Spirit will guide you then. And as you get a bit more sort of competent or confidence, it gives you a bit more rope then,
Yes.
and in the end, it disconnects the rope because you can do it, by yourself. And I think that's what we're all going through, really. So
Yes.
there's these 12 different spheres of consciousness, or 12 dimensions, or 12 potentials that all human beings have, each associated with a different frequency. With a different frequency comes a different level of intelligence, if you like, or an aspect of intelligence. Forget levels. I didn't mean to say levels, but I don't believe in levels as such. I don't see it in a linear way. I see it in a sort of a spherical way. You know, so there's no up or down, actually no ascension or descension. There's just parts that maybe need to be improved. And I think that our intuition will show us what we need to change on a daily basis in order to realign with the ultimate flow of the universe. That's how I see it. But I don't think, this is where I'm at now. I listen to what everybody's got to say, but I have to give a feeling, because I think our intuition can say, work on this today. But maybe if I go to a coach, they'll say, work on this, right? They can't see what you need to do. You have to feel through yourself, really. So it's quite important to be able to feel the guidance that's coming from within, and to trust that more and more than anything else.
Yes, and also we do have blind spots. So if,
Of course.
you know, when we need it, like I had a chat with a dear friend yesterday, you know, Victoria, and she was pointing out a couple of things for me, and I was like, oh my God, that's so true. I didn't see that. And that's like, but you get the response immediately, whether it's something that resonates or not. So just getting that mirror from the outside can be very helpful, but not take that as a truth above your own truth if it doesn't resonate. Like always check in.
No, I agree. And that's why we only generally have 2 or 3 or 4 trusted people
Yes.
who can see these things and point it out to us. And we don't mind them pointing it out. It's when all the other experts jump in and start saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. You know,
Yeah.
I do take that information on board just in case I'm missing it, but I have to allow it to filter through my heart. And
Yes.
then I sort of get a feeling. I mean, resonance just means sort of resounding, doesn't it? It's all like a resounding. So
Exactly.
these
It
are the
does make a
12.
difference in the feeling whether someone is actually seeing you
Yeah.
and or whether they are projecting.
Yeah, it's and
Like,
these are the things you learn, isn't it? It's called discernment, isn't it, as we go
yes.
along. I mean, I'm only learning myself. You know, people ask me what shall I do, and I say this often. I say, I don't know what you should do. You need to find out from within yourself, right? Because to be honest with you, I don't know what's coming up next for me either. I have to wait till the moment arrives and the little gift of the information, and then act upon that information received. So here's the 12 bits and pieces. That's actually what's happening. So our mind or our consciousness, influenced from the invisible dimensions, is working on the cerebral hemispheres, you know. And basically what will happen is, as the information from the mind comes in from all these different dimensions, it will send certain influences down the nervous system. Now, this is just representation of the nerves. Now, for example, this one here, for example, this might be, well, this is actually to do with mercy. This one might be mercy. So that will send information here almost to say, you need to step back a bit, Joe, and start being a bit more kind, not only to yourself, but to other people. The one on the other side is strength, right? This is severity. Now, if this is out of balance, this become very bullying, very assertive, very aggressive if it doesn't get its own way. Very interesting, these. So the idea would be is to look at both of these sides and to allow them to come out of your mind, completely let go, and allow them to settle back to the center themselves. Because some people might say to you, oh, no, you don't want to be taking that. You need to push yourself on further. This side might be saying, oh, you need to back off. In the end, you need to let go of both of these sides and allow your heart to decide then. So then we're out of the duality then, and we're moving into this third sort of heart-centric balance point. And this happens in all the chakras as well. This is the 12 sphere tree of life, and I work with this a lot. It's almost like the modern Kabbalistic tree, but that's another story anyway. So this is what we're looking for, is that the invisible information will come through and it will impact and work through our meridian system and through the chakras. And so we can't see this energy. It's a magnetic energy. But the magnetic energy that moves will impact upon the electrons or the electricity in the nerve fibers then. See how that works? So sometimes there's an invisible light body that's sending information through in a magnetic way that's causing our electricity to move. That's how spirit moves us. Now, modern medicine will say, what a load of old nonsense all that is, right? But once you start to feel it, right, it becomes your guiding force, really. So what I feel we need to do is, the more that you let go, the more that the sun's radiation will impact upon us, cause us to surrender, the flow will increase, impact upon our nervous system, right? And then it will send signals to our body on areas that we need to pay attention to. So it's like almost like what's in the macrocosm is trying to come down and inform us in the microcosm. And what we're looking for is true perfection. And perfection here on the earth is when everything's balanced, and this is our central column. This is when the left and the right sides are dancing with one another and impacting upon the dances in every cell of the body. This would be perfect balance, and therefore, I suppose, enlightenment, or as good as we can get as human beings, really. And that's what we're working with. We're working through the different chakras. The chakras will work through the meridian systems. The meridian systems work through different organs. Then it impacts upon our electrical system. This is what we can feel as human beings. These ones here, that big one there is the sciatic nerve, that one there. And so the electrons working through here will send impulses to the rest of our body then. And then that information will work through our nervous system and it will stimulate various glands. Those glands will produce specific chemicals which will flood into our bloodstream. Don't you think this is a magnificent creation, this thing here?
Absolutely.
And so, you know, it's amazing. So this one here is the root chakra. That's associated with protection, and it's the first chakra that comes online. And it's to do with, this is to do with your biological sex, by the way. So your biology, right? There's only, you can only be either or. You can't be both here. You can only be either or. So you've either got a thing that sticks out or the thing that sucks in, right? So you can work that out for yourself. So that's biological sex. When you move up to this next center here, this is your sacral chakra. This is to do with gender. Now you can have a masculine body or a sticky out bit, but you can be in your emotional and intimate state. You can be more inclined towards feminine. And this is sometimes where a lot of confusion goes on at the moment. It's not confusing to me. It's quite simple, really, you know. So the next one we move up to, this is your society instinct. This is where you move out from being yourself and you start to move into society here. This is to do with the pancreas, and it's to do with your basically your liver, your stomach, your pancreas and your spleen. This is all to do with energy production. And sometimes when you get a grip in the gut, right, it's just an indication that you, at some level, you've perceived a threat. And basically, rather than emotionally react to defend yourself, you can step back and say, is this really a threat to me? But most people don't know this. They just automatically react. And there are unscrupulous forces who would have you living on your toes all the time and in this state of emotional reactivity. I would suggest that if you're an emotionally reactive person and maybe oversensitive, or people have suggested that you're oversensitive, don't take it. They're probably trying to help you. Try and go into mindful meditation, which is to do with the heart here, and then start to look at both sides. And this is what I've had to do. I couldn't be talked to. I was always touchy. People were always getting on my nerves. I couldn't stand crowds. Everything was too bright. If there was a label on the clothes that I was wearing, it would stick in my neck and I'd get all frustrated and, you know, stuff like that. So I was emotionally oversensitive. And over time, I've had to become more tolerant of my own sensitivity. I'm only talking about myself. This is the heart here. This is to do with the immune system. It works with the spleen, and it's basically about sensitivity to invading organisms. So anything that's trying to get in us, that's not part of us, the immune system will send cells down to see if it's a danger or not. Now, when we're in fight and flight for a long time, we can become oversensitive in the immune system, and we can start to develop all sorts of allergies and stuff like that, and irritations. And over time, the irritation become inflammation. The inflammation impact upon the stem cells. The stem cells, because they're living and trying to defend themselves, they start to toughen up. And sometimes they can change their characters and cause all sorts of cell problems, and I'll let you work that out. But, I think that rather than fight things like cancer, we just need to understand more clearly what's actually happening at an energetic level, really. And the answer, by the way, to all these things is love. The answer, the solution to all these imbalances is unconditional love. Right. Just thought I'd chuck that in there, but I'm not being sloppy because unconditional love is not the same as human love. But that's a story for another day. Then we move up to the throat. We've come here, so we've got the thymus gland and we've got all those hormones associated with the heart and the thymus. Here we've got the throat, the thyroid and the parathyroid glands. That's all to do with energy production. We can actually stop the flow and stop what we need to express by closing the throat. And lots of people do this. They swallow down their own opinion and they basically listen to everybody else's opinion. So you might find now that as the sun powers up, the heart powers up, gives you more courage to speak your mind, right? But it's got to be done in a way, because nobody did it to you without your permission. It's got to be done in a way where you state your truth firmly and clearly. The next thing we go up to is the pituitary gland, which is basically the master gland, and it's associated with the hypothalamus. And then with top of the shop here, we've got the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is really where we open out into outer space. So this is inner space, and then this is the connection to outer space. And sometimes people get channeled information through, right? And they start to speak in weird and wonderful languages. And we'll probably have a go at that in a minute or two. Right. And just to mention, this is the connective tissue. This is where the meridian system meets the nervous system. And it's so, so important now to understand that the water that we drink needs to be as clean and as clear as possible. And you can actually bless water and you can talk to water. Like Professor Matsuro Emoto, he did those experiments where he actually put bottles of water together. He spoke to one bottle of water, I hate you, you're horrible, you're stupid, and everything else. And on the other one, he said, I love you, you're fantastic, you're really intelligent. And he actually he could see the crystalline structure of both of them change. One of them became a beautiful thing, one of them became an entangled thing. And so water's important. And I haven't got time to go on about the fourth phase of water, but please look it up, because for some unknown reason, people are saying, medical authorities are saying that this isn't true, but I know that this is true. And what actually happens is, in the fourth phase of water, which is actually not H2O, it's H3O2, so it's a different structure, atomic structure, it's a superconductor, and it allows the information in the body to travel much more rapidly and much more clearly. So the more information we get in, the more that we can process it, the more sense we can make of it. But water is so important. And as Kristin mentioned in their recent podcast, also we need to get the mineral contents right as well, including sodium, chloride, magnesium, and all these things. So feel your way into that one, but maybe pay particular attention to just making sure that you've got enough magnesium. So I just thought I'd mention that there. So have a look at this. By all means, go and have a Google and see what you think. And so that's basically who we are. This is our brain. The brain is taking information from our consciousness. It's impacting upon various parts of our brain. The brain will send electrical signals then to the different glands. All these nerves, right, all go to different glands. Those glands will secrete various biochemical substances. Those substances will impact upon all of the body and all of the stem cells in the body. So if we can generate a feeling or allow this feeling of freedom to come through and unconditional love, that's the solution. And the solution, all solutions dissolve things. So they dissolve all our problems. But how do we allow this? You just got to get your head out of the way. Just get your head out of the way.
Yes, and this is actually like it's so true what you're saying, because when I was working on healing all the physical pain I had in my body. The sciatic nerve was one of those that were squeezed, and I mean I had a lot of nerval um, of pain from the in the nervous system from the Lyme
Neuropathic
disease.
pain.
Neuropathic, thank you. From the Lyme disease, because that's in the central nervous system, right?
Yeah.
And I remember having this realization that I'm actually afraid of the nerves in my body because they create so much pain. And as I had that realization, I was like, okay, so my nerves are actually here to make my body function, not to create pain. So instead of being antagonistic with the nerves in my body, can I actually start, breathing into them? Maybe like one nerve at a day, or in a meditation, or just like seeing, this tree system, and the branches in the body, taking one arm at a time, or the spine or whatever, or the sciatic nerve, and starting to do like that, it really, really helped.
Yeah.
It's not woo, like this is, yeah, I'm proof.
No, and I know loads of people, highly sensitive people tend to suffer from things like chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalomyelitis, that's another one. They tend to be exhausted all of the time, but there's also a flip side of that, that sometimes it can be almost manic as well as the energy builds up. So sometimes when all this energy is compressed, and this is what happened to me, is when I drank it, released it all and I felt energized. But when I didn't have the drink, the old habits came back in and I became a compressor again. So there's lots of different things. It's now, as the sacred feminine energy is coming in, it's more of a nurturing energy, and it's all about self-care. And it's also the main nerve, that's the self-care nerve, is called the vagus nerve. And this is all about allowing the vagus nerve to have a word with, because the vagus nerve is yang and it's feminine, to have a word with the masculine fight and flight response to say, hang on, big boy, you've had your day now. You just need to back off and just allow a bit more gentleness to come in. And I think that's happening in a sort of forceful way now, where the sacred feminine is coming, the sacred feminine's coming through to say, look, let me just show you and just back off a bit now. And I think it's happening whether we like it or not. So the next thing is just to bring this to a conclusion is that the nerves supply all the different muscles in the body. And so if you've got muscle pain, it will be because of maybe a postural abnormality, and you will need to do some stretching and allow the energy of the meridian system to work through the nervous system, which impacts upon the musculoskeletal system. But the other thing is as well is postural alignment is important. And that's why many people are going to things like not Ashtanga yoga, yin yoga, hatha yoga, and flow, vinyasa flow yoga now, is to allow the natural, sacred feminine, nurturing, nourishing, rebalancing, restoring energy to come back and reset the balance. This is really what the Great Reset is, not that other nonsense that they're going on about. This is the natural one. And so really, it's about the sun sending information when we're aligned in all our different departments. Now, if we're really obstructed, our posture is going to suffer. As the sun's rays come through more and more, we get the feeling which starts to straighten us up and more align us. We get to a better posture, and then we get back then to perfect balance. So there's lots of things that we could talk about there, but I would suggest give yourself some time out, mindfulness, mindful movements. Think about yoga, and your head might say, I haven't got time for that. I can just assure you that if you take some time aside and practice it, you'll start to use your time and energy in a much more efficient manner. So that's my
You either
personal.
make that choice, or the choice will be made for you.
Well, it will be, and it will be made for you is because it'll basically, the universe will knock the legs from under you until you start to get the message. You know what I mean? So sometimes it has to punch you with love and knock you out so that you can think, hang on a second, maybe I need to let go of some of my thinking and old ideas. Or else. Right. And so let me just come out of that now. So I hope that was useful. I mean, you know, we've whizzed through that, but in the end, this is what I see. It's not what you think and it's not how you feel. In the end, it's what you do that determines the quality or the lack of it in your life. It's what you do, you know.
It is. After actually feeling your emotions and observing your thoughts.
Yeah, because in the end, the way we act, that's our behavior, is what we do, right? Is influenced and it's basically created through our thinking and feeling. So if you're not in touch with your thoughts or your feeling, then everything's automatic really and just revolves. So to me, evolution is becoming more conscious of your unconscious. There we are.
Love it.
So I think what that's good. About time too. All right, hang on.
Yeah, I've
So,
been hearing light language for a while now. That's why I almost didn't, I wasn't, I, you see, I almost wasn't able to talk English because I hear it constantly. So it's like, it's difficult to talk normal. Yeah.
well, I was saying to you before, it's spilling out now all the time in different dialects now. And it's like, oh, you sort of got that, you know. And they say, what did they say? I say, hang on, I'll be back with you in a second. So it's piling in. People who are listening to this might understand, and there might be people listening, but you might start to get like, it's almost like stuff coming out, and you think, you know, you might be humming and and suddenly a language comes out. Please believe us, this is a positive thing. It's about freedom, really, of expression. So, here we go. I've called this the language of love, light, and I called it something else. I can't remember what it was. Three things: love and light and laughter. Love, light, and laughter.
Perfect.
Amico selam tech. Isham yerot amal saliat topshi. Kajaram tach no holej. Ere mielasan di rochora samtre ore telen. Ere sura more tach ershi. Across some de shebra hill, of tin aros some ela nog aras some de grab.
Riento amaro to ron erchel rit aik war o ekret int watcher lir kun ner mai wa ai oren el erchurn de aika.
Maar is sorry toch na ershi. Kura some de grab elaf sam de el cross sem al. Meer tosh en de asgorum atech. Sure nier de part nodig. Ook gran sam de shael am toch ras sam de krowai. Nu tai.
To ant ant urkt I ko ai ko in ring o gel grun amal rutu in grnia aika.
Ele so tegen de houders je. Alep sober en toshe en sabbat neher. Haras sat ne eret. Kurut sa egrom dat ne eras murtuch as and drai. Era sombre eras murte mes. Kurut ne het.
Tuul rata ant un celler hunta mo kinnerle waira tuul cerkler kuta tammo trund aller tuk aller tu ein tieret anda renta iranta rikter ungnia.
Agus sem tirem. Alap net super de ora mera tush me. Harat zere ord ne me. Kat neze a dulce groep. La saro murt. Kerbasat nut. El tu chur at na hoetische.
Turunta allerta mar waan tarunta waan churul ka inarata ya ka aruto ma aler churul ni a wal rinni ka ya ni ar uai shira.
Maar zeg, Corona, dat was Sandra gewoon niet meer. Tegen, Sarah horen nek te hoes. Haal ze rollen, maar dat toch jam te krijgen. Nee, Sabr er route mee en zat tegen. Schur, nu moet dat zetten. Moordagrirurarmichteru. Hazoren hartut meje.
Warin, kurria, ailernia, oi karnia, ai, ai, kullu ruinnia, kuaretui, kurkinle, kurcha, kurkin, ruunti, arkle, kurcha, karktinni, aka, ai, akawa, ha, ai, kain, kanerakin, ai.
Amma suri kora mashender mamni. Hala suri malgora mashender lakuni. Horam dirab snefsha anantum sha alamantukuma. Rusante erosum dekne. Horam dirat sura and mara tursha alamora tiklahu. Horat hussa entach. Horasel in yaramam. Rotem sha achai.
Tera erun to a jorun nilara ta haik o at ai to a nia ka aleru to ama ro na lera to era choro ka ai ta arata o era choro ko ni ka ai ta ro ai o ro ni aler ka ai ka going kin ai kro ko ai ka era to choro ni aka kurka tira ni ta aka
Mikatsu piranish nishura miam atasale mie. Nakasore alam duchtashesh. Addisam tikaramachose. Lakasi biram tashe. Mutat mute echrut nech achram tishai. Mitat niskai. Yes, it's become awfully warm. For anybody that's watching this and not accustomed to this, I wasn't either. And then, as I got more and more into this, strange things used to come out of my mouth, and at the time, because the way my mind works, I thought I was heading back to the psychiatric department. But then I looked a bit deeper into this because it's called glossolalia. And glossolalia just means to speak in different tongues. And some people may actually understand what's being said. I don't. Sometimes I get an indication through feelings and even see things sometimes. But it doesn't make any sense to me in an English human way. But it seems to shift stuff in my whole being. Kristin works with the blue beings. I don't particularly see beings as such. But when I get the visions through, if you like, and I'm only trying to explain what happens to me, I get like prehistoric reptilian type rock type people. And by all accounts, I work with the rock people. Right. And my good friend Elsa calls them before maketh man. So it was almost like prehistoric, even before the human beings were formed. Now, I've got to be honest here, I don't fully understand this, but I'm not going to try and stop it now because people may think I'm cracking up or whatever. I'm not interested in that anymore. Because by practicing these things, I've never felt more solid, more clear in my mind, more grounded. And it almost seems to bring new information, which expands my sort of vision of what all this is about, really. I don't know, I'm into like lecture mode, but just trying to explain to people is I don't knock anything at all now when people are fully expressing themselves. I've done that all my life. I was very judgmental and I had a standard of, oh, that's a load of old rubbish there. And I've been proven to be wrong that many times that I really don't have any sort of judgment on these things now, because I find out to my detriment about 3 months later that it all makes sense, you know. So I tend not to now. And just to say this, Kristin, I used to think that I was open-minded, but I wasn't. I was broad-minded, meaning I had a lot of knowledge and a lot of information, but I wouldn't let any new stuff come in. There seemed to be a block. And now anything can come in now because it seems to be making me feel better. Loads and loads of more people are starting to identify and resonate with it. And I sort of think that that's my job now. What do you think?
Definitely. I feel like for me, when it first started happening, it was like really weird sounds, sounding like, you know, different animals, or like it was really weird. And I didn't know that my body was able to make those sounds. Like it was really weird. And then it turned into this sort of a language, and I was like, is this like an old language from the earth, or what is this? Because I'd never heard about this before. And then there were different types of tones and voices starting to come out, and you know, eventually I learned that this is light language and everything. But my experience in the beginning was very, very physical of it, because I could feel which chakra it came into. And also my I don't always notice it myself, but my arms tends to work on the energies at the same time, very often also connected to the chakras. And also when I notice that my arms are going, I also see it as almost like spheres outside the body, so it's like in different layers. That's how I see. So I don't necessarily understand what is being done, because I don't do this voluntarily, but I can feel like this is like, I can feel where in my body something is happening. And I also, like, my most open sense is my vision, so I tend to see things, and I think I've only had like 2 or 3 times where I've actually understood what's being said. Normally I cannot translate it.
Yeah, so that's where we're up to, everybody. And, you know, I'm sure and hope that you'll all sort of experience things in your own unique way, because I think if we were all doing the same thing, then it would be rather boring, really, you know.
Yes, and you know, you can hear one person channeling light language and you don't feel anything, and then you can hear another person and it's like, you know, full on, and it's resonance.
Yeah, yeah.
I have
And
people who, you know, who's never heard of, you know, any light language at all, and have never heard of channeling, and they've heard me do this, and I've been tearing up and coming to me and asking, what is this? And I have other people who are like, you know, also never heard about it or really into it, and they're coming and they have listened and they're like, you know, I didn't really feel anything. It was just like, you know, nothing. And then it's not a frequency. It's like, so it's normal to feel something and not feel something else. Trust yourself.
I think as I've gone along in this, because what I got was, and for people who've helped me, train me and stuff like that, I got give what you get, right? Don't edit it in any way. And I'll give you a clue about that is I was talking to somebody once, a girl, and I said, and I don't know why, I said, but I'm getting a banana here. And I said, does that mean anything to you? And she said, no. I said, I don't know why, but I'm getting this banana. I said, I've got to be honest with you. It's a blue banana. Well, she just burst into tears. because her dad had a joke. Her dad, who's in spirit, had a joke about blue bananas. So that's how it seems to work, you know. So I say to people, this is what's coming through. This is what I feel. This is what I'm getting. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not going to interpret it. The information's for you, really, you know. And I get a lot of, I see dead people. I get a lot of dead people-y type stuff coming in. But I get help from me dad, you know, because my dad was my hero. My dad's with me a lot because of the energy. Sometimes I smell his sweaty feet, you know. And he liked gorgonzola cheese, me dad, and I smell those smells, and I think, Dad, I can tell that you're with me, you know. But I also have a brother in spirit, and we've got a few kids in spirit and stuff like this. And recently, those energies have been around me. Now, Kristin, I could be making it up, but I don't feel that I am anymore, you know. And I'm trying to be more refined in this information to try and understand it in a more efficient way, really. That's where I'm up to with stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where, for me, like for example, if I'm meeting a client in a session, I have to empty myself as much as I can. I mean, I use my human. I'm not going into a trance state with a client. I'm staying in this state, and I'm using my human to communicate, to see the person, you know, to be able to convey the messages in the way that my human understand that is the best for the person. So there I use my sensitivity and my human. But my mind has to step out, because the things I'm receiving and seeing, sometimes it's like it's bits and pieces, and throughout the session it's like we're ending up in a very different place than we would if my mind would have taken, you know, the session, and where we would go with it, or what my mind would think that would be like the issue or the thing to go into. And it's the same, you know, if you're like with mediumship, talking with a spirit, or if someone is coming through, it's really, it is when we keep getting the confirmations that makes us trust it. Because yes, there are many people that with good intentions or with bad intentions, you know, think they get messages or wish they had got messages, and I think it's about being open, allowing it, and practice and get the confirmation, because we need to see that, okay, this is actually, because that's the way for me to learn how I'm receiving messages. I need to practice and to actually get confirmation. Okay, this is how it is. If it's my mind just, you know, putting things together, this is how it is. If it's a spirit, this is how it is. If it's, you know, a higher consciousness or from galactic, this is what it, if it's what it feels like in my body. If it's only energetic imprint in a place, for example, and it's not really a spirit, like these are things to navigate, and we only learn it by getting the confirmations and by allowing it. And that's a journey. That's quite a journey.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you never know what's going to come up next, you know. And this is the thing, is as you get more trust in these abilities, you can sort of let go and be guided by it. That's how I feel. I've had a lot of people say to me, though, this stuff coming through, how do you know that you're not possessed? And it's giving you the message that I carry always. I know all the time is the message I carry is, I don't know what you need to do, but you can find out by reconnecting to your heart, right? And the idea would be is that the message is it's harmless. So if it's something that's causing you to go and harm somebody else, right, that's probably not, it's probably not the right thing to be listening to, that, right? And it's healthy. And basically I've gone away from good and evil or good and bad to, is it healthy or is it harmful? That's what it's come for me. And I you know, don't you? You just know that if you're going to do something and it's going to harm somebody else, probably not the right choice, right?
Exactly.
So as simple
or
as
if
that.
it's something, you know, or harming yourself as well, same thing.
Yeah. So there we are, my darling. That was a lovely session. It's lovely to see you. We'll carry on, shall we, when we get the call, and you know, and we'll see how we get on. God knows what we'll talk about next, but we'll just wait until the day. And I call this the headitor, because it wants to jump in. I can feel it coming in to try and, you know, don't say that, what about this, put it this way. And I have to say, get away, and just let it keep coming, really. So thanks very much, everybody. I hope you've got something from that. And if not, hey, whatever, you know, who knows. And Kristin, I love you like mad, and I hope you have
Yeah,
a
me too.
wonderful. I hope you have a wonderful next, rest of the week. I don't even know what day it is. What day is it today?
It's
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yes. Let's start with a good sleep.
Yeah, good
Yes.
idea. Good
I'm
idea.
rooting for that one.
Right, darling. So I'll speak to you soon, and thanks very much, everybody. And may the force remain with you forever and ever. And nobody parches if you. Oh, bye bye. Bye bye.
Thank you.